Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's Pastor Sean from Living Waters Life Center. Hey, it's Wednesday, April 8th, and today is the very first day of the Jewish celebration of Passover. It's no mistake that the Easter week falls during the Passover, that the Jews remember their exodus out of the land of Egypt. Jesus, during this Easter week that we in the Christian church celebrate, had a very, very difficult week leading up to his crucifixion and death. Jesus faced many, many challenges this week. I want to share with you a reading because as Jesus was walking through this week when he was alive nearly 2,000 years ago, knowing that at the end of the week that he would be crucified and that he would suffer and carry the weight of the sin of the whole world, yours and mine included, upon his shoulders. The battle was very real. The things that Jesus went through, Satan was literally attacking him. And at one point in time in John chapter 14, Jesus said this to his disciples. And I think it's a good word for us to hear today. Jesus said this, "Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you, for I go to prepare a place for you." It's interesting that Jesus knew what his purpose was on the earth when he came. Jesus knew that he came to ultimately give his life as a sacrifice, to allow his blood to be shed on the cross, so that your sin and my sin could be forgiven and washed away completely, so that we could find life through his death. Jesus knew what it was all about. And yet he said to people like you and me, he said, "Let not your heart be troubled." Jesus knew what he was about to go through, and it was a struggle. But Jesus, as he went through it, oh, how he relied heavily upon his Father. And you know what, with what you and I are going through today, social isolation and the social distancing and the challenge that we face today, I believe Jesus' words would ring strong and true for us to hear today. Let not your heart be troubled. Jesus knew what was coming at the end of the week, and he goes on and he says, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself. I think it's amazing that of the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. But you know what? Even in preparing for what he was going to face, Jesus's heart was that you and I too would know that we're not alone, know that we don't have to fear, because Jesus made a promise that when he would go, he would send his Holy Spirit to us. So church, I want to encourage you today, let not your heart be troubled. In Jesus' preparation for his death, he also wanted us to be informed, and he wanted us to be prepared for everything that he was going to face. The disciples, this was a word that was pertinent for them in that day, because they were literally walking through, watching Jesus, everything that Jesus went through, and even to his ascension. But it's a pertinent word for us today as well, because Jesus said, if I'm going to die and I'm going to be raised again to life, Jesus said, I'm going to come back again, and I want you to be prepared for that day. So in Matthew chapter 24, again, this teaching took place after Jesus had entered the city on Palm Sunday, the city of Jerusalem, and Jesus began to tell his disciples what the signs would be of his coming again. And it's interesting, in Matthew chapter 24, Jesus says, he said, these will be the signs. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars, verse 6. It also says in Luke chapter 21, which is somewhat of a sister verse to Matthew chapter 24, in that both of these chapters speak specifically with end time events that are going to happen soon upon the face of the earth. In Luke 21, Jesus also said that there would be earthquakes, and there would be great earthquakes and plagues in various places. and famines, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. It's interesting that Jesus would say these things, because the truth of the matter is you and I don't have to look very, very far around us. I mean, here we are in the midst of a pandemic. You talk about plagues. I mean, this is the challenge that we face ourselves in an unprecedented time in our history. But Jesus went on and he said, see to it that you are not frightened, for these things must take place. Again, Jesus, much like he said in John chapter 14, he said, let not your heart be troubled. And we need to see to it that we're not frightened. We can't be afraid, church. We've got to remember that the Spirit of Christ dwells within us, and God has not left us alone. What we are facing is very challenging indeed, but let me say, what we're facing in our world today is nothing compared to that which is to come. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 21, Jesus said, for then there will be, coming soon upon this earth, there will be a great tribulation, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall. And Jesus said it's going to be so bad. Verse 22, he said, unless those days had been cut short, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days shall be cut short. Jesus was saying there's going to be a time of tribulation that's going to be coming on this earth, and we need to be prepared for it. Jesus said, and I love what he said in verse 29, because he begins to speak of his glorious return. You know, Jesus left this earth 2,000 years ago, but he promised the angels when Jesus ascended, they made a promise that this Jesus you see going to heavens, he's going to come back. And Jesus said this in verse 29. He said, but immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken. And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And he will send forth his angels with a great trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. What a glorious return that we will see someday soon when Jesus comes back to the earth. But again, Jesus wanted us to be informed. And you know what he also said in Matthew 24, and this is just the last thing I want to touch on, that Jesus said, of that day and hour, no one knows when it will happen. Not even the angels of heaven. Jesus said, I don't even know, but the Father alone. It's interesting because Jesus in Matthew 24 verse 42 says, therefore, I want you to be on the alert, for you do not know which day your Lord is coming. And he says in verse 44, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not think he will. I'm so thankful that Jesus kept us informed. But I want today, church, for us to remember what Jesus said. He said, I want you to be on the alert. I want you to be watching. I want your eyes to be looking around you. I don't want you to be caught unaware by these things that are taking place in the world. You don't have a reason to fear if you are my son or you are my daughter. If you've given your life to me, Jesus said, I'm going to hold you in my hands. You're my child. I love you, and I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to be with you no matter what it is that you go through. It doesn't mean everything's going to be great and we're not going to suffer some trials and tribulation. I mean, we certainly are. But Jesus said that he would be with us through it all. I just want to say today, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you've made the best decision that you could ever make in this life and for that which is to come for all of eternity. You know what, my friends? This earth is not our home. It's just a temporary dwelling place. And if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, your citizenship is in heaven. And we have so much to look forward to. Don't be afraid today, but let your heart be filled with faith that God is God and all things are in his control. God bless you today.